Good morning on this Tuesday, the 4th of August. This is the local street gang in a little community called Cobadamana. This is actually a relative's property just outside Inglewood, and I think our relative calls these ones the local street gang. And as having been a wheat farmer's wife, flocks of cockatoos can do, and galahs of any description, can do massive damage to a wheat crop. But there they are, they're having lots of fun. And one of the joys seeing galahs is how silly they can be. Today I thought I'd read from Deuteronomy 26. I don't think I've ever reflected on this particular passage before, even though it is one of the more important passages in the book of Deuteronomy. It actually picks up the end of the second telling of the law, where a new generation reaffirms the covenant that God made with Abraham and then with Moses. And it's just as they're about to go in and take possession of the land. So reading from verse 1. After you occupied the land the Lord your God has given you and have settled there, each of you must place in a basket the first part of each crop that you harvest, and you must take it with you to the one place of worship. Go to the priest in charge at the time and say to him, I now acknowledge to the Lord my God that I have entered the land that he promised our ancestors to give us. The priest will take the basket from you and place it before the altar of the Lord your God. Then in the Lord's presence you will recite these words. My ancestor was a wandering Armenian who took his family to Egypt to live. They were few in number when they went there, but they became a large and powerful nation. The Egyptians treated us harshly and forced us to work as slaves. Then we cried out for help to the Lord, the God of our ancestors. He heard us and saw our suffering, hardship and misery. By his great power and strength, he rescued us from Egypt. He worked miracles and wonders and caused terrifying things to happen. He brought us here and gave us this rich and fertile land. Now I bring to the Lord the first part of the harvest that he has given me. Then set the basket down in the Lord's presence and worship there. Be grateful for the good things that the Lord your God has given you and your family. Let the Levites and the foreigners that live among you join the celebration. Every third year, give the tithe, a tenth of your crops, to the Levites, the foreigners, the orphans, the widows, so that in every community they will have all they need to eat. When you've done this, say to the Lord, none of the sacred tithe is left in my house. I've given it to the Levites, the foreigners, the orphans, the widows, as you've commanded me to do. I have not disobeyed or forgotten any of your commands concerning the tithe. I have not eaten any of it when I was at mourning. I have not taken any out of my house when I was ritually unclean. I have not given it any of it as an offering for the dead. I have obeyed you, O Lord, and I've done everything you commanded concerning the tithe. Look down from your holy place in heaven and bless your people Israel. Bless also the rich and fertile land that you've given us, as you promised your ancestors. One of the things that I've noticed over the years, and I've not been in too many places where this has been the case, but there have been a couple of times during my life in Christian ministry where people have reached a point of there's something they've been working towards for a long time. It's been either a couple of places, it's been a new church building, establishing a new church community, having come through a major trial, and things have come calm, and people often in those situations, the ones that I've experienced and ones that I know of other people have done it, is you reach a milestone and you think, I've made it. And there ends the trap. It's not you who've made it. What God tells people here at this part of Deuteronomy is that if you've made it, if you've reached a milestone, your church building, finished a course, achieved something like a new job, or moved into a new house, you haven't made it. You've reached a milestone given to you by God. Sometimes it'll be really subtle, because sometimes we give thanks, but we can be quite satisfied. Where I've seen it, I remember the church I was part of when I was younger, we'd finished building this new building, and it was a real struggle for the next 3 months. Because our church had been growing, had been having to grow in faith, was having to trust God for the finances for our building program, which was, immense. And seeing our treasurer grow was one of the great joys of that. He's going, one stage, he dole out cents. He got to the point of going, I don't know where that many $1,000s are going to come next month, but yeah, God's provided so far, so it's going to happen. But we moved in, and people going, yes, we've made it. But the thing was, we reached that milestone so that we could actually be safe or more secure, so that we could actually do more work for God. And the warning which we picked up and worked with was, in fact, this particular warning that God gives to the people. They're about to come into land. They're about to come into God's promise. And all of us, at time to time, will come into the promise that God has given for us. It could be, very simply coming to new life, coming to faith for the first time. But we ought not stay there, because we need to continue to live. But one of the foundations for that living is that we give thanks to God. So in a very visible act, the very first things that come, we offer to God. I remember seeing this, my son-in-law's adopted brother in Arnhem Land was actually telling a documentary maker and showing him a number of things about their culture in East Arnhem Land. And the commentator said, so how long does it take a young fella to actually catch a fish with a spear? And some of the kids they were actually teaching on this particular hunting trip and preparing for ceremony were actually very young. We're talking about 7 years old. He said, it usually takes them about 5 years worth of practice. And they're usually about 12, by the 11 or 12 when they catch the first fish. And the commentator's going, because he did everything everybody else did. He just, coming from Central Australia, he had no idea and was actually nowhere near any of the fish. But then he said, the first thing that happens, the young lad catches his first fish. The expectation is he will take that to his mum or to his aunt or his grandma and give them the fish to eat. The first fruits of what will hopefully be a lifelong activity is offered in thanks to somebody else, somebody who's actually given them life. And what we're told here, what God tells us here in Deuteronomy, is that we're given all the great things in our life, so we want to give back to God the first parts. And there's a practical application. It's not just given to make it and burn it away. It's given to support. And we have that in those verses where quite often the people of Israel forgot about God's promise to Abraham being a blessing to all nations. That when they come with the tithe, yes, to the priestly caste, so that the people looking after your helping you with your spiritual well-being, they have enough. But also foreigners, people who are actually not necessarily people who are worshipping God, to look after people who are strangers in your land. I mean, there's a few direct applications that can be used in Australia, or particularly at this time when people are worried about people from overseas. The command here is to act with grace towards those people, to those who are orphans or widows, those who need support in our community. That what we are first given ought to be a blessing to others. What Deuteronomy encourages us to do is to have an attitude of gratitude, so we should be giving thanks. And a practical way of expressing that thanks is to actually reach out to other people, as well as to God. That to do those things together is actually a true act of worship. May you be encouraged and challenged by that. How is it that we might bless others as we bless God and thank God for what He's given to us?